And here we go. What's up, Tobe?
Hi, Steven.
What's going on?
It's good to see you.
As usual.
Things are
This is
good.
number. Yeah, things are really good actually. Number 7. How you feeling about it, huh?
Love it. Love it.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
I'm having a
Well, I
lot
got
of
this.
fun. I hope
Yeah, I
everybody
got
else
this thing.
is
It says
too.
video audio previews are available in the recording sidebar. I don't know what that means. It's the first time I've ever seen that. All right. Anyways, yeah, it's really good, man. I'm excited. This was a good one. I was really happy to go back to this one. Because this one was another one in 84, man. We've been doing 84, 85. It's
Yep.
good years.
Yep.
Great years. And when I watched it, I realized, oh yeah, this was like kind of a turning point for horror movies, because it became um if you think about Mike Myers and Jason Voorhees, they're the more of the physical, kind of like what you were talking about with It Follows. It's just this physical presence. This one kind of was more psychological. You're dreaming. That was a big change. What was this movie? When was the first time you seen this, and what does this mean to you?
So this goes, chalk another one up to the VHS tape, watch it after school every day kind of thing. It recorded it off TV. And it.
With the commercials?
Oh, I was good about cutting the commercials out.
Oh, okay. You're one of those. I like it.
Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah. You could tell when it was coming, because the little for us here locally in the Bay Area, the Channel 2 icon would pop up in the lower right hand corner, and you could tell where it was coming. So, it's like recording songs off the radio. Trying to get it perfect when the DJ's trying to hit the post every time, and you're like, stop talking and let me hear this intro.
Yeah.
But so even at 12 years old, I was pretty good at this. I was pretty good at.
You had your technique down.
Dude, no tickling or nothing. You bring up this is A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original one by Wes Craven, the master.
Oh, that's right. Didn't even say the title. Or did I? I don't know.
No, it's in the title up here.
Oh yeah,
it says it right up there. This is it, but you have Michael Myers, like you had said, and Jason Voorhees. These are two baddies at the time. They're in the zeitgeist in 1984, who never say a word. They are just a presence. They don't have any kind of personality whatsoever. They are just a shadowy figure in the dark, if you will. And with Freddy Kruger is much more psychological. He's let's just start out with the backstory. He's a janitor at the school. He lives in the boiler room, unclear where, his whole, but he is a child murderer, like the worst monster there is. And he's fashioned a glove with blades from a Sawzall. I don't know what these blades are actually from, but he's grinding away down in the boiler room, making this glove, and he's trying to be as terrifying as possible. The parents trap him in the either in the house or in the boiler room. I think they kill him in the boiler room, is how the story goes, and they burn him alive. And so they take their revenge. They murder him.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if his character is stuck in some kind of, he belongs in hell, but he's not there yet kind of thing, the way I see it. And he's stuck in this kind of purgatory, no man's land. And his power is fear. And he's obsessed with children. It's gross. It is very scary. And for me, at 12, 13, 14, whenever I started watching this over and over, as a Jason Voorhees fan, I'll watch all the Friday the 13th because I just love that kind of menacing. Not going to say a word. I dig that. That's
Yeah.
But of all the Friday the 13th, excuse me, of A Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one is truly scary to me.
Yeah.
And right?
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
we can get into how there's like 14 more of these, and Robert Englund is phenomenal as Freddy, but the idea that you can be scared to death
right.
is a very it was new to me. I think I'd seen Dreamscape. Do you remember Dreamscape?
I was going to suggest that we do that. Yeah, I
Okay,
love that movie. I
I love
love it
that
with
movie
Dennis
too.
Quaid. Yeah. Kate Capshaw. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Great movie.
I love that you could get into each other's like subconsciousnesses and
Yeah.
that's a really you have no control. Like you can't. The only thing you can do is wake up, and then
Right. Right.
you've escaped the monster by getting out of your dream. But the thought that, I mean, just the notion and the premise of the story that if you die in your dream, you die in real life. As a
Right.
teenager, was terrifying.
Yeah, that was a big one because I think for me watching it, that was my initial turn off. Not turn off meaning I didn't like it, but it scared the crap out of me when I was 10 years old when I saw, or maybe it was 11, 10 or 11, but it was around the time it came out. And I remember my parents, my mom and my stepdad watching it. And my mother gets spooked easily anyways, but
Hmm.
she swore off it. To this day she doesn't even want to see it. And to me that kind of piqued my interest. As a kid, you're like, ooh, something that scared my parents. Well, whatever. Man, I didn't sleep for. I mean, it borderline traumatized me. I mean, I couldn't sleep. This idea that something was waiting for me to fall asleep to come and get me
Mm-hmm.
was that was the big thing for me. Couldn't couldn't get wrap my mind around that. Um, and it was also, like I said, it just seemed different. Like, and kind of touching on what you were saying about Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees. This guy, Fred Kruger, as he's known in this one, the
Right.
formalities haven't worn off yet. It's Fred Kruger to you. And he had more of a personality. He had more of like, I'm gonna come and get you kind of vibe, which just doubled down on the horribleness of this movie. And yeah, it was just one of those things. I think it kind of uh it I don't know, it just doubled down on the horror for me anyways. And it was, I was 10 years old, 84, I was 10. And Jesus, man. I mean, it was on one of those tapes again in my library, 3 to a tape. It was the third one. And I think before it was like, I think the first one was Delirious, and then the second one was maybe some comedy, and I never, never again went to that third one, which was Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh,
So
it really traumatized you.
yeah, I mean now like watching it, I haven't seen it. I've seen bits of it, because of the internet, but I haven't sat down and watched it since probably the 80s. I remember part two coming out, I think a year or two later. And I used to live in Sacramento, and I would come down to Healdsburg to live with my grandparents for the summer. And I remember two coming out, and I watched that over and over again. I had no problem with two because it was kind of a little more, I liked it, but it was a little more goofy. And so I could take it, kind of took the edge off a little bit. And yeah, but that first one, yeah, I didn't really go back to it, and especially that last scene, which we'll get to. But
Yeah.
that last scene where he reaches through the door and pulls the mother through the hole, like that, I don't know why, but that scared the crap out of me, man. I was just like, oh man, that scene alone traumatized me. But yeah, we'll get to all those kind of good stuff here.
You mentioned the parents, and not only your parents, but then the parents in this movie. A lot of what we saw in the 80s was the parents were kind of non-existent.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
movies that we've discussed so far, Fast Times,
Yeah.
Well,
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, which does
no,
have
they
the
had their
parents,
parents.
but
Yeah.
we're going to show your
Kids.
parents, but they're your
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
Is in the parents in this one are totally non-existent. The mother's drunk or on pills or something, and at certain points, it's a coming of age. The kids are left to figure this problem out. What is happening to our friends?
Yeah. And at the beginning, that's what rewatching it, I forgot how everything started. I just remember the terror,
Yeah.
But it starts out with Tina. I think is that her name, Tina? Getting chased, or she has a dream and she wakes up and then she goes to school and they slowly start to realize that they're all having the same dream, which is kind of clever. So yeah.
Tina, who's played by Amanda Wyss.
Yeah.
From Fast Times.
Fast Times, yeah.
And you're right. They are. Something happens where they are all having the same dreams, and they get to talking about it.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't you? You look tired. Oh, why do you look so tired? And this idea that the problem with you're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. We figured it out. Okay, he's going to kill us in our dream. And it doesn't take very long to figure this out in the movie. It's still like act one.
Right.
And so, hey, problem solved. Just don't go to sleep. Now, the problem with not going to sleep is you will go crazy.
Right.
And the way Wes Craven crafted this is that it's so good, especially during like act two, where they're fighting sleep, and then they get to a point where, as the audience watching them, you're not sure whether what you're seeing on the screen is them awake or asleep, and they don't know if they're awake or asleep, and that's scary too. Just in that part of it,
because I think a lot of what got me as a kid was thinking, oh, they're awake. Okay, cool. Wait, how is he still chasing her? Wait, what?
Yeah.
And then you're right. It's that thing of trying to figure out, is this my wake? Is this real? Am I sleeping? And I think once they figure it out, that kind of changes the movie into kind of a straight ahead slasher, which is fine. It still scared me. But there's that shift toward the end when I want to call her Heather, but Nancy figures it out. And those medical scenes reminded me of like The Exorcist when she's going through all those medical procedures, and it kind of brought me back to that of like, what's going on here? We're running all these tests, and it was kind of a shorter version of that. But yeah, that's still gives me chills, man.
That's right. And as you had said, the reason why I'm not a big Michael Myers fan, but I do appreciate that Michael Myers is scary and that he's got one gear,
Right.
Jason's got one gear. His motivation is to just essentially kill everything in sight. Not going to say a word. And in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy he's only on screen, I think, less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
He's not the star of the show.
Right.
He's really not. There is no star of the show in this movie. It's unclear who exactly is the main character, really. I mean, I guess you could say it's Nancy.
Yeah, I think it becomes that. I think it starts out kind of like a group project, and then as each one kind of, I think Nancy comes to the realization a little quicker than most. There's that funny scene after what's her name, Weiss, Tina gets killed when she's in bed with her boyfriend,
right?
And then the boyfriend kind of like follows Nancy the next day or something, and then they all the police. That was a funny show. But I think from there, I think Nancy's kind of um, because he's saying, "Oh, it wasn't me." She was getting cut, and I couldn't see who it was, and so I think from there, I think she kind of gets on this quest of like, all right, well, if it wasn't him, and then she gets to the idea that maybe they're the dreams that they're sharing, and yeah, creepy, man.
That's what you're, and I think I know what you're talking about when if you're being attacked by Freddy in your dream, what's
Fred.
happening to you in the real world is actually happening to you.
Yeah.
And Tina, it's Tina, right? Tina,
yeah, Tina.
Is they wake up in bed, the boyfriend in his tidy whities is like, what's going on? What's going on, man? And she's thrashing around the room, gets pulled up, splashed in real life. You see the.
Yeah.
Then she goes up the wall, over the bed, and this is CSI. This is an open shut case, right?
Yeah.
He's covered in blood.
Inside.
They're the only two people in the room. Nothing else makes sense. So he flees out the window.
Yeah.
And Nancy's thinking, something more going on here.
Right. Yeah.
She's good.
Yeah. Oh, she good.
She's
terrible.
She good.
Let's get to just kind of like a basic kind of just random facts here.
Sure.
So this was only made for the budget was only 1.8 million, which I did not even. I thought this was the typical 10 million. I mean 1.8. That's scary, and it grossed $25 million.
Yeah.
And 57,000 was for special effects, which was some guy named what was his name here? Jim Doyle, which he went on and did like The Nutty Professor, Loaded Weapon. He also did Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Hell yeah, dude.
we need to talk about that one. But,
do we?
Yeah. And so here's some things when I was watching it at the beginning. Here's some things that I think whatever happened to. I wanted to fly some things by you to see whatever happened to the LL Cool J style boom boxes. Do you remember those things in the 80s?
Oh, absolutely.
Did you have
8 to 10 D batteries in them? Yeah, absolutely.
I think I had one. I had maybe two at the most, but those things showed up in almost every 80s movie that you ever. I don't know that it was kind of crazy.
The dual cassette
movies that had the bat. What was that?
The dual cassette. You had to have the dual cassette. Otherwise, if you just
I only had the one.
If you have
I had a friend that had dual.
Yeah. If you have the one, then you're Soundwave from Transformers, ejecting dogs and birds out of your chest. I mean, which I'm totally on board with, dude. That's dope.
No, I had a buddy that had a dual one that I would take my tapes over and make mixes with. Yes. And we would spend like Fridays or Saturday nights. At that point you're like 12 or something.
You had to tape the holes. You had to tape the holes with masking.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Well, only the ones that already been recorded.
Yes.
If you got your blank ones, you didn't have to do that. But
that's right.
And if you wanted to save them, you took the tabs off. But
that's right.
Yeah, that was crazy. How about the sleeveless V-neck sweaters that Johnny Depp was wearing?
Dude.
Did you ever wear any of that?
No.
And the khakis, paired with khakis and some Docker shoes? Or not Docker, but...
That's before my time. We had cardigans.
Cardigans, that's what it was.
Yeah, we had the button-up cardigans. That's the late 80s, early 90s stuff that was cool for us, yeah.
So that was... For me, I went to... I had a babysitter that lived in an area kind of like this area in the suburbs. It was like maybe 3 or 4 blocks from my elementary school. And they had... she lived... And she was just dressed... I mean, she was just this normal lady. But all her neighbors' kids, I mean, they all dressed to the nines. They all had, those shoes. I had a pair of those shoes that Johnny Depp wears at the beginning. They're those brown kind of moccasin type. Do you ever, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, like the Docksiders.
Yeah, Docksiders.
Mm-hmm.
And you had those kind of like ties that, if you walked around, they'd last the whole day. But like being kids, they last like maybe a minute, 10 minutes, and then they're untied, and then you constantly whatever.
Yeah, they were like rawhide or
yeah,
they were square.
Yeah, and when you try to time it,
you couldn't keep them tied. You needed to have your buddy take one end and your other buddy take the other end and run in opposite directions in order to keep those things anywhere and then you take 10 steps and they're just flopping all over the place.
Yeah, then you might as well just take them off.
Great call.
How about Letterman jackets? Did you ever have a Letterman jacket?
Yes. Oh, I still have my Letterman jacket.
You do?
Yeah.
I never had one. I always wanted one. Never got it. But dude, this movie was full of those. Oh, and then a movie with the bad boy boyfriend walking around with the leather jacket and the switchblade.
Yes.
Like you always had. That was a staple in the 80s. Especially in the early 80s. That was just how you knew you had a... Did you ever know anybody like that?
Well, we had the switchblade, but it was the switchblade comb.
Oh, comb. That's right, yeah.
No, we couldn't... There's a couple different kinds of switchblades. There's the kind that comes out from it like swivels up, and then there's the kind that retracts.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I've actually... I mean, you got to go to like a gun show to find those things, even back in the day. They were really hard to find. We were more like... brass knuckles, nunchucks, throwing stars. We had throwing stars for some reason.
Well, in case the ninjas came to school.
That's exactly right. It's good to be prepared.
Yeah. Well, I had a friend that had the leather jackets. I had tons of friends with those kind of leather jackets with the zippers. But they all had the butterfly knives.
Oh, butterfly!
Which
okay.
I could never get.
Yep.
I could never get. Can we just use two hands? There you go. Okay, here we go. I could never. But yeah, that was my friend Carlos.
I was pretty good. Yeah, it's just all for show. I was pretty decent with it. I could do it. Yeah. We had a couple of those on First Street.
Nunchucks. Those are another things that I think a friend of mine had. I had a friend whose name was Adam, who is probably a friend still to this day, hopefully. But he was one of those kids that was like feral. He had parents, lived in a nice house, 2-story nice house, but and the parents were, I don't know, they were nice, they were regular type parents, and then you go into his room and he has like this elaborate like cave system.
Okay.
And he sleep, and it was just, and his hair was out to here, and he was just collected knives and nunchucks. And when he moved out on his own, he had this big I went over one night and he had this big 44 Magnum.
Yeah.
And he was like, it was unloaded. He showed me, but he would like stick it in his head, and he was, hey! And it was, so it was that borderline friend of like, I don't know whether. I'm glad that he's friendly to me, because if he wasn't, I would definitely.
That's right. No, yeah,
but
yeah.
That's the kind of friends that I had.
Yeah, I had a couple of those. I had a couple of those friends just on First Street again.
Yeah.
We didn't have an Elm Street, but if we did, it would have been First Street, I feel.
Yeah.
And these are guys who now have arsenals where you're like, there's as many guns as there are humans in America right now. 330 million people and 330 million guns. I'm like, well, I can tell you where you can find 150 of those guys. They're making up for me, who has none.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, I think the math works out. I would agree. I know enough guys that make up for the other people who aren't fully strapped,
Right.
You never know. Hey, the war could pop off at any time. We've all seen Red Dawn. It's good to be prepared.
Red Dawn.
You know?
That's another one we should do on this channel.
So if you tell me that was made in 1984, I'm going to slam this iPad shut right now. We are stuck, my man.
All right, well let's get back into the movie, man. Let's so where were we? We were at we were talking
Special
about
effects were only $50,000, and I would imagine that most of that was the blood shooting from the bed up into the ceiling where Johnny Depp, this is his first credit, by the way. This is the first thing Johnny Depp ever did, introducing Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
And we don't see him get killed. He gets sucked into the bed, and then there's a volcano of blood, and his mom walks in. Oh no! She's beside herself. Oh,
well, that was a congresswoman from the movie Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Oh my God!
Yeah, she plays a congressperson or like a town committee type person. Anyways, go ahead.
No kidding.
So. Yeah, the mom and the dad of Johnny Depp, they kind of make a cameo because I don't think you see them really until he dies.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you're saying she's the local comptroller of Corona, California?
Yeah, so like so Nancy, that's her name. Nancy kind of figures out where this is headed. And spends kind of like the whole rest of the movie trying to convince people and trying to stop.
Don't fall asleep.
Yeah, don't fall asleep. I remember Johnny, or what's his Johnny Depp's name? Glenn was, he was the only one. He was supposed to wake her up one time when she's kind of trying out this theory of hers of, if I can bring him out, you need to, what did she say? You need to clock him or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's like, huh?
That theory is so when my brother and I watched it on Friday night, and I was worried that theory of how are we going to stop this guy? How are we going to kill a ghost? I mean, essentially, like he's not is he a demon? He's only in your dreams. How are we going to stop this from happening? And what she figures, look, if he can kill us in the dream and what happens in the dream happens to us in real life, if I grab onto him in my dream and then you wake me up, then we can pull him out of the dream. And then now you've got a guy with a bladed hand who is now totally real and running amok. I mean, so many things could go wrong here by this. But I was thinking, will this hold up? I was worried that I was like, ugh, because this was scary to me as a 12-year-old.
Right.
Like, can you pull something out of your dream and just the whole physics behind it? I don't know. But I was worried, and I was like, it kind of holds up.
Yeah. I mean, if you keep it into the context of this is in the 80s and this is a horror movie. Yeah. I mean, the whole thing kind of holds up in the way of like it was just very innovative, I think, because like I said before, and we keep kind of harping on the point of like the horror movies before where you had Jason and you had Mike Myers. It was kind of this thing that cannot be killed, but it was physical. You could stab it, you can shoot it, whatever. It's kind of like that It Follows type of idea,
right?
But this one was more of like the psychological stuff, but it was also kind of a metaphor, I think, for the people. I think, which why it touched a lot of people. I feel like is that it just played on your fears. So whatever your fears were, and you would dream about them. The idea that actually that you could bring those fears and manifest them in reality, I feel like that. For us kids, it was the scary monsters coming after us. But I think for adults, maybe it was because of that. It was this thing of my fears becoming reality and what can I do? What can I do to stop this? And I think that's why it left so much of a mark on especially the culture of that time. You know, you're in the mid '80s. You got Reagan again, still
Yep.
there,
Yep.
and you had the Cold War, and you had all these fears nationally, but you also had you know um, I don't know if you're going to make rent or if you're going to put food on the table,
Right.
whatever it was. And you had that at times. So I think that's why it made such a big impact. That's my opinion, anyways. My opinion on that.
Yeah. The going to sleep was. I mean, if you're already afraid, how many times have you laid there, even as an adult, and like sometimes you're just like, we're afraid of different things now. You can call it anxiety. You can call it like, what is really scaring you. And it's hard to go to sleep if you're scared. These
Yeah,
guys, you would think, harness that fear. This is going to keep your heart rate up, and you don't need to
yeah.
drink pots of coffee or take mini thins or whatever you did back in the 80s. Hang on, I know. We ain't going to sleep tonight. But now you're afraid to be in either realm of your mind.
Yeah.
And the
Right.
thought that this, whatever it is, can come into your brain, into your subconscious, and kill you
Yeah.
was something that Dreamscape touched on, but you didn't have to worry about some kind of phantom or the you mean the janitor from 10 years ago that you guys
Right.
burned alive is now going to come in with a scary glove, which was cool, by the way. Everybody had that glove. Troy,
Yeah.
Troy was a Freddy. My brother Troy, who he and I watched the movie on Friday night, he had the Freddy glove, and I was a Jason guy, and I had the Jason mask. So we were coming from two different camps of like, what was you dressed up like the monster,
Right. Right.
but at the same time, this is something that really truly scared you, and now you can't either stay awake or go to sleep. You
Right.
can't get out of your own head. You'll
Right.
go
I
crazy.
think that's the
It will drive
that
you insane.
yeah, and I think that was again, that was kind of the allure of this movie, and plus, you had the culture at the time. Again, you had the Cold War, so
Mm-hmm.
there was all these things that you were kind of being afraid or being told to be afraid of, and then you had your things that at this time wasn't addressed, which was trauma and the way maybe you were raised or something that happened in you weren't really. It was a time where you didn't really talk about those things. You just
Yeah.
kind of, you know, uh, just kind of went on with your life and dealt with it, and you squished it down as best you could. But I think this was just kind of like a whole metaphor for those kind of things. And unfortunately now it's talked about all the time. Even I go to therapy too.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think it's just a little more accessible to those things that because I think they remade this in 2010, 2011, somewhere around there.
Oh, they did,
And
didn't they? Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know if it did well or not. I didn't see it, but
No, I didn't see. I don't. There was. So I would watch. What happens after this movie is Freddy becomes a cartoon character to me.
yeah, right,
He is the main character. He's on screen over 50% of the movie. He's got these catchphrases now. And I mean, in the first one, there's some terrifying lines that he shows
Tina,
Tina. She's running away from him, and they snap to him. She's like, "Oh my God!" And he goes and he holds up the glove, and "This is God."
oh yeah, yeah,
Holy shit! Are you kidding me? And I'm in like an altar boy at the time at the
oh
church that
wow,
we were
I didn't
going
know that.
to, and I'm like, can you say that? Like questioning, like, this is truly terrifying now.
Yeah. Well, I think if you were brought up like that, I mean, I can imagine. Because I think anytime, even now, anytime you say anything about God or anything, there's people that are just like, "Jeez, oh my gosh," oh. And that is terrifying to them. So do you add on all that other stuff, especially when he holds up his hand, he's like, and he hacks off his fingers, or he slashes himself, and all the worms come out.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
I think when Johnny Depp is trying to stay awake, right? And Johnny Depp, whose only job in this is to wait, make sure I don't fall asleep, and of course he does. And then he's in his room, he's at home, and Nancy is at home, and he's on the bed. This is when his death scene, and he's trying to stay awake, but he's got his headphones on, he's got the cans on, and he's got the TV on his chest.
Yeah.
And of course he falls asleep, right?
Right.
But as he's falling asleep, Freddy's like head starts pushing through the wall.
Oh yeah, that's at the beginning. That's the first kill.
To Nancy, isn't it?
Yeah,
he does that.
Nancy's sleeping in Tina's room. Tina's getting railed by her boyfriend.
That's right. That's right.
And Johnny Depp's on the couch.
That's right.
And that's when he's looking. He comes through. Yeah,
that's scary.
Image is, yeah,
it's really good. Last night I watched, just because I was clicking around, and I saw Freddy versus Jason, and I went, I've already seen this. I know how this is dog shit, but I'm going to watch it anyway, because let's just. I was hoping that Kane Hodder had played Jason in this one, and sadly he doesn't. He's my favorite Jason.
Yeah.
Go ahead and Google Kane Hodder. He's dope. And they, at one point in Jason's dream, when Freddy attacks Jason, and we get to see Jason's dream. Yeah. He comes through the wall of the boiler. You see his head start to poke through a little bit, and I'm like, that's obviously a callback to the original Nightmare on Elm Street, which was great. Robert Englund's in every one of these things.
Yeah, I got to meet him actually. Yeah,
did you really?
Yeah, he came to. I was working at the Virgin Megastore when Freddy vs. Jason was coming out.
No kidding.
And he was doing promo, and he came in for an in-store, and so when people would come in, I was sometimes, not all the time, but I was part of the team that would take them up to the fourth floor. That's where our offices were, and, before and after like the meet and greet. And oh man, just a nice guy. Genuine.
They say he's just the nicest guy.
Dude, he's like so down to earth, like he's just a normal person. And took pictures with everybody. I think I had a picture with him, but I lost it. But he took pictures with the staff, and just very articulate and very, I guess down to earth is the only way I can describe him, because he was just so, when you talked to him, he was like, oh, that's great. Oh, I love that scene, oh, that scene where you had to do this. And it was, he would just took his time. It was great. Good guy.
Johnny Depp has talked about his first movie set. What are your thoughts on that? And you always remember your first one, right? Johnny Depp has done 200 movies or whatever. And he talks about how, Robert Englund really made me relaxed. And he would be dressed up as Freddy, and he would take my Walkman, and he would be rocking out on as a, and putting it in his words, of course. He's like, he would take my Walkman and just getting us just loose, and giving him tips and things like that. So as far as acting wise, Johnny Depp really credits Robert Englund a lot for less is more kind of thing, especially with the first movie, where it's not, again, Freddy's only on screen less than 10 minutes, but the specter of this of Freddy is terrifying in itself. Like with Jaws, there's the sharks in the movie a minute and a half maybe, but it's called Jaws, and you're aware that there is and it's more maybe the soundtrack than anything that really starts to scare you, but it's the thought of this creature's coming for you. Yeah. This looming death is It's a really terrifying notion.
Yeah, I would say. And so to kind of hop back on the point of Robert Englund,
Yeah.
I also met um, the guy from Reanimator. He was also in The Frighteners. Did you like The Frighteners? I think we should talk about that movie too.
Okay.
But he was the FBI agent in Frighteners.
Oh no.
The guy that's like, did he eat excessive amounts of salt? You remember that guy?
Kinda. I think that's bringing it back for me.
Anyways, I met him. I did a student film when I was at the academy, and we hired him, and he's been in Reanimator and all these like Star Trek episodes, um and he was the same, although he was a Dodger fan, so that's the only nick I could put on him. But
No good.
yeah, he was down to earth. He's very, it's those things like Robert Englund too, I think, is that they're in this kind of genre where it's a horror movie. So you don't have the biggest budgets, or at least back then you didn't. Those movies, even though they made a lot of money, 25 million, 20, 25 million, 15, 15 if it's a lower budget, 10 to 15. So it's like, they're in this medium, which is kind of not the most popular, but they know their place in what they're doing, and they're able to have fun and not have an ego. And what am I doing here? Why am I making such a, because I think, with the talent that we had on the student film, the dude is only making like $5,000, I think, 10 grand, something like that.
Okay.
And after every shoot, we'd shoot for like 12 hours. And then he'd be like, oh, I'm going to go get sushi at this restaurant. Anybody from the crew want to come? And, I never went because I was always broke when I was living in San Francisco. But,
Right.
yeah, it was just kind of like, they're just nice people. And there are nice people in Hollywood. It's just kind of hard to find.
For
Yeah.
sure.
So,
And this
yeah.
speaking of the budget, this is the movie that saved New Line Cinema. They were about to
Yeah,
file
that's what I read. Yeah. Keep going. Keep
and
going. Yeah.
this pulled. They were this close to filing for bankruptcy. New Line Cinema, of course, is kind of known for their horror genre.
Right.
Did all the Friday the 13th, did all the Nightmare on Elm Streets. The list goes on and on, but they call it the house that Freddy built after this
Oh,
movie
wow.
came out
Yeah.
because of the success of the original. And of course, it starts a franchise. It starts
Right.
numerous franchises of video games and costumes. Every kid dressed up as Freddy that Halloween, and big time. It's
Oh, man.
in the zeitgeist for sure. Like
Right.
that's all you have to say. And there's the nursery rhyme that was kind of haunting too, where the little kids are going 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Yeah.
That's kind of. I mean, when little kids are singing haunting songs, okay. I mean that I just creeped myself out just singing that. I'm like, don't do it. You know what? Don't do it.
Well, and it's when it went into the 90s and into the early 2000s, like it started to kind of, I think if I went on the Reddit boards to kind of invest or kind of just get some random facts for this movie, and a lot of the consensus is that part 3 is the best one of the film. Now, this is a different generation that's getting into it after all of this has been made. But yeah, the consensus I get is that part 3 is the best one of the series.
That's a Dream Warriors.
Yeah, Dream Warriors.
Okay.
And I only saw that once or twice, and I don't really remember. I remember it has an Arquette in it. It was like her first movie, maybe, or one of her first. But it was.
And Heather Langenkamp is back as Nancy in that movie.
Oh, is that right?
She's not in the second one, but she's in the third one.
Yeah, she's not in the second. She also comes back for Freddy's Dead.
Yep.
I think the last 2 or 3, right? Maybe the last one. I can't remember. But it was just sad to watch, kind of. And the same thing goes with Friday the 13th, and also Halloween, as you've seen in this last 10 years or so, trying to make this comeback. And I just think that it's, it has to be, it should be just left back in the 80s and maybe 90s.
Right.
Because you can appreciate, you can appreciate the kind of innovation at the beginning, and then by the end you can appreciate the kind of campiness that it becomes, and that to try to recreate that is just kind of a losing battle because you're not going to capture that. Just try to do something else, which they are. I think Blumhouse. I heard, and I can't be 100% on this, but I heard that they're going to try and redo the Friday the 13th stuff. But I'm like, dude, just leave it, let it go, man.
That's right. And they did remake Friday the 13th, and they combined like chapter 2 and 3 into one kind of movie. Like he starts out with the bag on his head, and then he picks up the hockey mask.
Really?
Yeah, that's 2 and 3, and then 4 is my personal favorite. That's got Corey Feldman in it as
okay. Tommy. Is that his name?
Yes, he plays Tommy, and that one is my favorite of the group.
So answer me this.
Yeah.
There's one scene, and I think it's either 3 or 4 or 5, one of the middle ones, where this scene traumatized me, but it was like a guy goes down into like the basement or something, and Jason like starts stabbing him, and he's like, "Oh my God, he's killing me. Oh my God, go, leave." And they run back up the stairs, and I'm just like, "Oh God." That, I don't know, for some reason. Do you know which one that is?
That's 4.
That ring a bell?
That sounds like 4, yeah.
Okay.
Because they're not at Camp Crystal Lake at that point. He like tracks them back home. It's certainly not 5 because Jason's not in 5.
Is that the one where
it's the ambulance driver?
Oh, I saw that one in the theaters.
But that's the first one. That's the first one that Kane Hodder plays Jason in.
Oh, okay. That is the first one. I thought. Oh, okay. All right.
He plays the Jason that's the ambulance driver, and then 6 is a new beginning.
Yeah,
no. 6 is the final chapter. It goes 5 is a new beginning, and then 6 is the final chapter. That's where Tommy goes, and he's got to go back to Jason's grave, who's buried in the ground, and he digs him up. Classic blunder. Digs him up. And then is like stabbing him with a big like metal rod, and then lightning strikes the rod, and that reanimates Jason. So there's zombies. Him, Michael Myers. You're trying to kill this zombie. They have immense power somehow. Like they're very, very strong. He punches you and you fly all the way across the room, kind of thing. And the difference between those type of menacing. One just no personality at all. It's just they have just one motivation. They're like a Terminator. You don't have any personality.
Yeah.
That's what makes Terminator 2 so good, is that they gave the Terminator personality, and that's why 2, in my opinion, is sometimes better than. I enjoy Terminator 2 more than I enjoy the original Terminator.
Yeah, see, that's where we differ. I love the first one. I love the grittiness of the first one. And I think the second one, for me, I love it. I'll watch it.
Right.
If it's on, I'll watch it. But for me, the second one is more Hollywood. It's more polished. They give them the personality, like you said. But for me, it just made it too nice, I think. And I think the first one, what attracted me to the first one was the grittiness of it, the idea that this thing has no feelings, it has no personality, and that just made it scarier to me. Whereas in the second one, I think it becomes, now I know why you cry, and all that kind of stuff. Which again, it's not like it's a bad movie at all by any means, but I prefer the grittiness of that first one. It's a lower budget, and I can understand why James Cameron poured so much money into the second one, because he has the talent to do that, if anybody does. But I think in lesser directors, I think that's kind of sometimes that's like the kiss of death. But yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead.
No, that's.
So the Friday the 13th one that I saw in the theaters was I think it was the ambulance driver one, where she has like the telepathy type of power.
Oh yeah. That's
and
6.
Is that 6?
7. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You're right. She has like she's a PK. She's got PK ability.
Yeah. And yeah, because the one before they
That's
kill him by
right. I
drowning.
forgot about that.
Yeah, so the one before they drowned him and he's stuck under that pier. And
Right.
then in this one, for somehow with her power, she kind of reawakens
She
him.
reanimates him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not knowing that she did, but he comes back up and that's the whole movie commences.
That's
Whoa.
right.
Yeah.
And they always had like that secondary title. You look break into Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah. Oh, that it's then a new chapter or the final chapter, or new beginnings, and yeah, lofty expectations. Friday the 13th, and then there's
I'm gonna
one
have
where
to
he's in
look for
space.
that one because she was like a formidable foe for Jason.
Yeah, well, it was a different way of attacking.
Yeah, that's right.
It wasn't physical. It was like, I'm gonna explode your head or whatever she did at the end.
There's no stopping him because he ends up in space in like the year 2500 in Jason X. So
Yeah.
what are we even talking about, right?
I saw that one on late night HBO. I used to come in. It was in my high school years. I used to come in on the weekends, Fridays or Saturday nights, 2 a.m. I'd get in my room and I was like Glenn from. I had the little TV.
Nice.
And in my room, so I would watch HBO. We had HBO, and those things would come on, and I would just be like either on, really drunk or on mushrooms or something, and it just be like, whoa!
You'd be like, I missed Red Shoe Diaries. Oh man.
Red Shoe Diaries. That was awesome.
You were too late.
That was Showtime.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
Yeah, get your cable channels right.
Sorry, man. I didn't have any of this anyway, man, so I don't know.
Oh, man, Red Shoe Diaries. We should do that on the... No, I'm just kidding.
Yikes.
All right, cool, man.
Here's a fun fact since we both worked for the same firm 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
The boiler room scenes where Freddy is filmed.
Yeah.
I was always like, I've seen a lot of, as an investigator who does some site inspections from time to time, I've never seen this. Where is this room? What is this? I know the lighting can kind of, the red lighting is one thing. And if you're working in a boiler room, they need to be pretty well lit because you don't want guys down there that can't see what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Without steam pipes and catwalks and the whole thing. But I'm like, where did they film this? This doesn't look like a school.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like an elementary or a high school to me. Maybe they are, but we didn't have these big schools where, 10,000 kids go to the school in, Chicago or something like that, where you need, 6 boilers lined up and to heat the building. The boiler room scenes were shot at the old Lincoln Heights jail.
Oh.
Which, after they filmed this movie, they condemned it and they tore it down because of the high asbestos contamination that was down.
Oh, Jesus.
They didn't bother abating it. They just tore it all out. Which I thought was like, that actually makes sense. You can't go back and come see where we, you'll go to Hollywood and you'll come tour where we filmed. No, not this place. Can't go to this one. Can't see where they filmed the original Nightmare on Elm Street because it gone.
Well, would Heather Langenkamp, would she have a asbestos claim then? Asbestos?
Well, she certainly was exposed to it down there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
40 years ago.
Well, that's how the guy from Trading Places and Breakfast Club, the teacher or the principal from Breakfast Club, that's how he went out, right?
That's right. That's right.
Meso?
Yes, he died of mesothelioma. What was his name? Oh shoot, I love
Yeah,
him. 2
yeah,
weeks. Two
yeah.
weeks. I got you. And from Die Hard.
Oh, that's right, Dwayne T. Robinson.
So good.
Yeah, yeah. He
I'm
was
gonna
a
remember his
good.
name when we hang up. But yeah,
Yeah,
Breakfast Club, Die Hard. Oh, he's so good.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not from acting, although there is. We had some cases where the Hollywood, what did we call them? The Hollywood plasterers case, because those guys would use plaster, lots of plaster. So like the stucco
Yeah,
products and the joint compounds and stuff like that. Those all
yeah.
are usually like about 15% chrysotile or chrysotile. Excuse me. But shoot, I almost had it. It starts with a P.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Let's
Anyway,
see. Hold on.
I wanted to throw that out there.
Well,
What are
yeah,
your
because
last thoughts on this one here? Wes Craven. Like, where did he come up with this idea? So Wes Craven got
yeah.
this idea from reading articles in the LA Times about the Hmong tribe of that there was these series of stories where people were claiming that they were dying in their sleep because of nightmares. And he
Wait,
went,
when was this?
this was why he wrote the movie, why he wrote where he came up with it. And his
Ah,
friend, when he was growing up, he had a paper route, and he and his buddy used to have a paper route, and his buddy's name was Fred Kruger. So he named he named the baddie, the heavy, Freddy Krueger. But he was inspired by this series of articles in the LA Times about people that were, I think it's a Vietnamese people they lived in Los Angeles, a community of Vietnamese people, Hmong, and they were saying that they were being terrorized. They were all having nightmares, and some
oh
of them would
wow.
die in their sleep. I'm assuming it's
Yeah.
heart attacks or maybe they were, I don't know, but you can look this up on newspapers.com if you have, or on Ancestry. If you have Ancestry.com, you can look
Wow.
at the old
You
LA Times in the late 70s, early 80s. There's a series of, like in LA, like Fletch.
right.
If there was, what was his name? Jane Doe. The Jane Doe character would be writing investigative reporting on people
Yeah. Oh, okay.
that there's people in our community, they're dying in their sleep, and it's because of these, they're claiming that they're having these horrible nightmares, and then one day they just wake up dead.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so you can look it up.
Wow, you went deep on that one. I had
I
no
did.
idea. I never heard of that. Sweet. Paul
Well,
Gleason, by the way.
I am an investigator, and I like to make sure that I vet these. So I'm like, is that true? Because I read it on IMDb.
Uh-huh.
Is that true? So I clickety clack and looked up, and I
Was it
didn't.
under the part in IMDb?
It's what? Yeah, it's under the trivia part. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I looked. Okay, I didn't see that on there. I skimmed through that. Paul Gleason was the name.
Paul Gleason.
Yeah.
Knew it started with a P.
Yeah. You're
It's good.
good with the P.
He died of mesothelioma.
Well, there's
Anybody
that.
else from Hollywood that you can think of that died of mesothelioma?
Yeah, the lady from Bewitched, the grandmother.
Yes.
She was. They did, and back at, I think it was in the 60s. She did a movie with a couple other actors, or a whole cast, at this one place that had raw. I don't know the stuff that they make asbestos at. I don't really know the science behind it. And so her and the whole cast ended up dying of
Oh my God.
Angus Moorhead. I think that's her name.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the movie that
Not
was in,
Angus.
oh, is it
Agnes.
Agnes. That's right.
Angus.
Agnes. Angus. We'll cut that out. We'll work on that.
Yeah, cut that. Yeah, we'll be right back.
But yeah, the movie she was in, I guess the whole cast that worked on that location ended up dying of meso or some sort of cancer related link to that stuff.
How about that?
Crazy. Well, back then you just didn't have you didn't have the regulations you have now.
It's true. I mean, yeah. You didn't have you did. I mean, it was the 80s, so OSHA's brand new.
Yeah. You got kids. So you got kids riding down the road 80 miles an hour on a wheelchair in the 80s.
Just the more I think about that scene and poor Corey Haim, may he rest in peace.
I'm still laughing about that, man.
Are you?
Yeah, I watched that clip that we made, and I was like, "Oh shit, dude!"
It's ridiculous.
There's even stuff when we were talking about him trying to get up the ramp and him going, "Ugh." All right, let's just cut it there.
I'm like, nobody gonna help this kid out? You guys have no heart. What is going on here?
All right, cool, man. Well, I think we're gonna wrap up here.
Okay.
Thanks again for Toby coming on and talking about
You're welcome,
Nightmare
buddy.
on Elm Street.
You're welcome, buddy. And it's spooky season. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Yeah.
Steven gets to pick the next one. Speaking of Steve's, the other person who jumps to the front of my mind as far as who died of mesothelioma was Steve McQueen, the great Steve McQueen.
Oh, that's right. That's correct. He worked a lot of construction.
He did work a lot of construction. I believe he was a CB before that. I think
he was an AB or was it a CB?
He was in construction in the military. They call them CBs.
Oh, okay.
I think he had done some anyway he was on Navy ships. And he was a Marine as well, I want to say. So, the Marines get transported by the Navy. They don't have ships. I mean, they might have ships of their own. You use the Navy to get transported around the Marine.
Yeah.
The Marines are usually there's a group, a battalion on the nuclear vessels. You have to have Marines on board. They actually guard the nuclear reactors.
Oh,
a lot of people don't know that.
I did not. I was one of those people.
Yeah, they stand guard. Anyway, you get to pick the next one. And we got what's today? Okay, so we got 2 more weeks of the spooky season. So,
and you got for yours on Halloween. It's going to be a good one.
It is.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that.
We might have to make that a live episode.
Oh yeah, we could. I'll look into that.
We shall see.
Toby's always thinking. All right.
I am.
Thanks, guys, for anybody that's hanging out. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. See you, Toby.
See you, Steven. Thanks. Bye.